The holiday season. It's a time of year where people like to rewatch lots of things that make them feel like kids again. You know, nostalgia, things like that. Whether you want to watch something about the Grinch or Santa Claus, all of us want to watch something for the holiday season. But something that doesn't come up very often is watching something related to Sonic for Christmas. Now, Sonic at Christmas is definitely a combination that we don't get very often, but when we do get that fusion, we get some pretty cool things. Whether it's awesome DLC for Sonic Adventure or Sonic Frontiers, or maybe a minigame for Christmas Nights in a Dream, or maybe even a Sonic Christmas comic, we've gotten some pretty cool things when combining Sonic and Christmas. But what if I were to tell you we got something truly special years ago? Something that Sega has only done one time and has never done it again. What if I were to tell you that, back in 1996, Sonic actually had his first and only Christmas movie? That's right, everyone. Back in 1996, Sonic actually had a full-blown holiday special. And that is what we're going to be taking a look at today, since it is the holiday season. So, with all that said, go ahead and sit back and relax, and grab yourself a nice hot cup of cocoa, and slip on your nearest Sonic sweater. Because today we're looking at Sonic's one and only holiday movie, simply known as Sonic Christmas Blast. So without further ado, let's watch. Alright everyone, before we deep dive straight into this, we first have to set up the history of this really obscure special. This holiday special saw release on November 24th of 1996. But way before this, Sonic Christmas Blast first began its life as a tie-in movie for Sonic X-treme, originally called An Extremely Sonic Christmas. Now for the 1% that might not know somehow, Sonic X-treme was meant to be Sonic's big mainline 3D title on the Sega Saturn. In fact, it was so big that a lot of other projects to promote it were being created, like a Sonic movie, there were Sonic books, and there was a Sonic Christmas special. However, due to a lot of development hell, well, this game never came out. Now, this video wasn't on Sonic X-treme, so I'm just going to leave it there. But if you want to learn more about this lost title and a lot of other lost Sonic games, you can go ahead and check out my director's cut of every canceled Sonic game. It'll be in the top right-hand corner and in the description below. Anywho, with Sonic X-treme being canceled, this tie-in movie was completely scrapped and turned into Sonic Christmas Blast as a promotional holiday movie for Sonic 3D Blast. Now, Sonic 3D Blast was an isometric title for the Blue Blur that came out on the Sega Genesis and the Sega Saturn, and effectively was the closest thing we were going to get to a mainline 3D Sonic title until the Dreamcast finally came out with Sonic Adventure. Now, this game pretty much featured you running around this big isometric area, collecting flickies, beating baddies, and using flickies to open gates to progress through the level. But if you compare Sonic 3D Blast to Sonic Christmas Blast, there is no real connection to the game in the movie, aside from a similar title card and a few shoehorned in elements, which we will get back to later. Now, this holiday movie, though calling it a movie is a pretty big stretch, was being created by DiC Entertainment, and it took place in the same universe as The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which has also been known by the name AO Sonic. Now, AO Sonic was also being created by DiC Entertainment, and it spanned a grand total of 65 episodes, airing from September 6th of 1993 all the way to December 3rd of 1993, which, to get 65 episodes out in about a 3-month period, is pretty impressive. The original series followed Sonic and his buddy Tails as they traveled across Mobius, all while putting a stop to Robotnik's evil schemes. Now, these aforementioned evil schemes could range from Robotnik putting people into slavery, yes, I'm serious, to the mad scientist creating an evil metal double to tarnish Sonic's name. But each and every week, Sonic would always put a stop to his plans and save the day, though he did this in some extremely unorthodox methods, but that was just a part of its charm. You also had other characters that were pretty synonymous with Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, like Scratch and Grounder. These were the underlings of Dr. Ivo Robotnik, and they would constantly go head-to-head with Sonic and Tails. But these two were complete idiots, and they both acted like bickering siblings all the time. But regardless of their stupidity, both of these characters played off each other very, very well, and they're honestly really funny. There were lots of moments in AO Sonic where the chemistry of all these characters just worked perfectly.
Yes? Thought you'd like to know. I've escaped.
Oh, thanks! Hey, boss! Sonic just stopped by to tell you his escape!
Honestly, when watching this series, the best way to describe it is just insane. But even with its nonsensical humor and stories, it was full of charm and heart. Not to mention that this run of episodes had spawned a mountain worth of memes, and the series as a whole is still held in pretty high regard today, despite its absolute insanity. Now, sadly, this animated show never had a true set finale, and after 65 episodes, the series just ended without any sort of acknowledgement at the show's conclusion. But with that said, this meant that the TV special, Sonic Christmas Blast, effectively acted as a pseudo-finale for the series, since the special came out nearly 3 years after the original Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog had finished airing. Furthermore, based upon my research into the special, when it comes to the older members of the Sonic community, most look back on this holiday special rather fondly, with some even seeing it as tradition to rewatch this title once every year when Christmas rolls around. Now, with all this laid out, I started to get curious to see if this sentiment would actually hold true for myself, especially since this quote-unquote movie is about 27 years old now, and I personally grew up watching all of Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog over and over again, and yet, not once have I ever seen this Christmas-themed finale. So, with all of our bases finally covered, let's go ahead and grab some popcorn and flip on our nearest TV and see if this old-school title still holds up today when compared to the shows that it's based on. And most importantly, let's see if this holiday special should be rewatched as a Christmas tradition. Sonic Christmas Blast opens up with the iconic intro from AO Sonic, but this time with a new holiday version of the main theme, all showing clips from the special that will show up as we watch. And after being so long since I've watched AO Sonic, this really does warm my heart to see again. Once the opening wraps up, our story finally begins in Robotropolis. Christmas Eve is upon the world, and everyone is filled with the holiday spirit. Everyone gathers around a massive screen in the center of town as an announcement from Santa Claus is due to start. But soon, things go sour, as we see a pretty obvious Mecha Santa, yes, I'm calling him that, Fight Me, shows up on the big screen and pretends to be the real Santa Claus, where he announces his unexpected retirement.
It is with mixed feelings that I come before you today to announce my retirement.
Your what?
He then announces that he will be transferring his job to the most wonderful and jolly person of all of Mobius, Dr. Ivo Robotnik, and we all knew it was going to be Dr. Ivo Robotnik, who is now known as Robotnik Claus. Now, for anyone that hasn't seen the wild antics of AO Sonic, this setup is actually pretty standard for this style of show, and I'm here for it. With Robotnik Claus now in charge, he introduces a new traditional reversal. Instead of people giving gifts to each other, or Santa Claus giving them gifts, now everyone is supposed to give all their gifts to Robotnik instead. We then cut to a mall where the big Mad Doc has set up shop, turning the festive atmosphere into an oddity.
All mothers must go shop for presents for Robotnik Claus! Children only in this part of the store!
Where mothers aren't allowed to be with their children, and the kids are all lined up to come up to Santa, revealing the presents that they're going to give Robotnik for Christmas. And yeah, that's kinda weird. Now, as this scene continues to play out, we're introduced to a reoccurring boy that will come up throughout the special. And in his first scene, he lands himself in some serious trouble as he straight up disrespects the Mad Doctor to his face, and punches him in the gut. And because of his insolent actions, Robotnik orders Grounder to lock him up and use him as a forced worker. That is not a joke, that actually happens.
Chain this brat up in my robot factory and teach him some Christmas spirit.
Now, during all this debauchery, we finally cut to the big man himself, the blue blur that needs no introduction, Sonic the Hedgehog. And we see Sonic having a conversation with, whoa, Sally Acorn! Sally! What the fuck? Yeah, this is the start of a few really weird random throw-ins from the Sat AM series. Now, before we move forward, I'll catch you up to speed if you guys don't know. Sat AM was another Sonic cartoon being created by DiC Entertainment. However, unlike AO Sonic, this one was far darker, and it's critically acclaimed to be one of, if not the best animated Sonic show we have ever had. This show starred the Freedom Fighters, going up against a way darker and more imposing Dr. Ivo Robotnik, as they fought against him and his evil forces, trying to reclaim Robotropolis and turn it back into the land that it once was. The general vibe and tone of the show was just way darker, both in its colors and themes, especially when compared to AO Sonic. And during production of these two shows, they were never once mixed together. They were their own separate things. However, this Christmas special actually takes a lot of elements from Sat AM and mixes it in with the world of AO Sonic. Not only is Sally here, but we also get the mention of swap bots, though they look nothing like the real thing. And we also get lots of reused sound effects from the Sat AM show. So this creates kind of a rather odd fusion of Sonic Sat AM and AO Sonic elements. which makes his Christmas special feel kind of off. And that's felt throughout this special. Not to say that's a bad thing, it's just a combination I never expected. Oh, and on a final, but rather odd note, Sally Acorn's actually sporting her original pilot design from SatAM Sonic. And actually, I think it was a good choice here. With her brighter pink color, she actually fits the style of AO Sonic rather well. But what I find even more odd is that she has no speaking lines at all in this special. Not one. The closest we ever get is her just gasping, which is definitely a tad jarring. Now, besides all that, this scene sees Sonic talking with Sally, where we find out that Sally doesn't want anything for Christmas. And Sonic takes this info and interprets it as getting Sally a bunch of gifts.
Now I finally got it figured, Tails. When a princess says no presents, she really means 2 stores full.
So with this mission now set, Sonic ropes in Tails for a mission to find Christmas presents for Princess Sally. And so they set off to Robotropolis, which is another tie-in to the SatAM series, as there never was a Robotropolis in the original AO Sonic series. However, right before this scene ends, we get our one and only quote-unquote connection to Sonic 3D Blast, as a random flicky in a treetop points out a ring that Sally gifted Sonic for last Christmas. This flicky, this singular flicky, is the only somewhat kinda loose tie to 3D Blast. If you remember, Sonic 3D Blast sees you collecting these flickies to progress in the game, and since it's the tie-in, I guess this is what they came up with to tie the game into this special. But yeah, this flicky pretty much draws our attention to the fact that Sonic is wearing a ring that Sally gifted him from last Christmas. And for those that haven't caught on yet, this is the MacGuffin of the special that we'll end up swinging back to later. Now, after the conversation between our blue blur and the flicky finally wraps up, Sonic and Tails blaze to Robotropolis to find Sally gifts for Christmas. But as they head into the city, we cut back to Robotnik's lackeys, Scratch and Grounder, as they're in the middle of stealing from a poor citizen who has really got it rough.
Please, I lost my job. My poor wife is sick. I had to sell all my furniture to pay my bills. The house is empty.
This leads to the evil duo to just steal this whole darn house, cause why the heck not? Which helps drive home the whole idea of them doing despicable acts during the holiday season. Afterwards, we cut back to Sonic and Tails exploring the main city, but they only seem to find empty stores with not a single gift in sight. And a few moments later, they begin to hear some serious commotion outside. When they go to see what's making all the noise, they spot tons of metal baddies loading thousands of gifts to take to Robotnik. And with that, Sonic and Tails set to investigate. Now, I want to take a pause for just a moment, because you might have started to notice something that I've yet to bring up, and that's the art style choice for this special. If you watch either SatAM or AO Sonic, you'll notice that Sonic and Tails' designs are very consistent. But that's not the case here in the special. Sonic switches from his Mohawk design to his Sonic Underground Quill design multiple times throughout the special, and Tails swaps art styles a lot as well. This can get kind of noticeable if you've watched a lot of 90s Sonic cartoons, and it kind of makes this entire special feel almost like a weird crossover, and like they couldn't decide on what art style they really wanted to go for. Heck, there are a few shots where Tails looks like a straight up dopey dog instead of a fox. It's really weird. And what makes things even more odd is that all the rest of the characters are extremely consistent with their designs. Scratch and Grounder look exactly on point, Robotnik looks on point, even Sally. But Sonic and Tails don't seem to ever be able to decide on what design they're going for. It's definitely really weird, and up to this point of the special, you'll definitely notice it. Anywho, let's get back to the story. As Sonic and Tails rush after the bots that just made off with tons of presents, a local kid calls out to the blue blur and spills the beans about Santa's retirement, and Robotnik's takeover, which then brings Sonic up to speed with everything that's been established at the beginning of the special. But before they can get underway and find Santa, the dumb bot duo makes another appearance to give our heroes a Merry Crushmas, by using a big old machine, of course. But as always, Sonic being Sonic, he makes short work of the old Nickumbots and crushes them with their own big bad machine. And then we get an AO Sonic classic, as our Blue Boy gets all dressed up with a not all too convincing costume, and tells our robotic dummies that they owe a fine of 10,000 Robotnik bucks, since they littered the streets with their own mechanical body parts. But with Sonic being such a nice guy, he'll forget the whole fine if they tell Sonic where Santa's being held captive. Thankfully, this ruse ends up working, since Scratch and Grounder don't want to end up paying a fine, and they end up revealing the real Santa's location. And now our Blue Blur zooms off to rescue Mr. Jolly himself.
I'm afraid we'll have to report this to jolly old Robotnik Claus.
Tell you what, old buddy, as my Christmas present to you, I'll let you do it.
Now, while our hog of blue rushes off to save Santa, we cut to Robotnik's fortress, where we're greeted by the sight of dozens of chimneys being constructed and attached to his lair. With Robotnik's whole master evil plan being that on Christmas Day, he wants everyone in Robotropolis to come down the chimney and give him huge bags of presents.
I want hundreds, thousands, enough so every citizen in Robotropolis could come down one on Christmas night and bring me huge bags of presents.
I'll take care of it, Doctor.
That is so dumb.
Though this doesn't make too much sense because he's already stole every gift from the city. So unless people are going to be giving him gifts out of their asses, I don't know what he thinks he's getting. But I guess that's pretty much the point. We eventually see Scratch and Grounder come up to the fortress and warn the big round guy that Sonic is on his way to bust Santa out of captivity. So in retaliation, Robotnik Claus alerts the Santa Sentry SWAT bots, SWAT bots being another Sad AM reference, to prepare for Sonic's arrival. Getting back to our spin-dashing Hedgehog, Sonic and Tails finally come up on the location of where Santa's being held captive, but of course they're met with some serious force. However, these baddies are no match for the Hog, and he easily blasts right past them, freeing Santa and escaping back to Santa's workshop.
I've never been so glad to see anyone in my whole life.
And I'm glad to see you. Now the world can have a real Christmas.
But even with Mr. Jolly's safe and sound, we still have a Mondo problem. Robotnik still has every single present, and with only a few hours left till Christmas, there's no way they can remake all the gifts in time.
There's gotta be something we can do.
No, Sonic, it's hopeless. Christmas can't happen for anybody else. Robotnik Claus has destroyed it.
However, just as all hope seems lost, Santa notices the symbol on the ring Sally gave Sonic. This was the MacGuffin I mentioned towards the start of the special. According to Santa, there just happened to be inscriptions on the cave walls where he was being held captive that inscribed a way to unlock the power of ultimate velocity. And it just so happens that Sonic has the ring that unlocks his power. But first he has to complete a set of challenges, so our crew heads off to Ice Pick Peak. Now, if you've been paying attention to the runtime of this special, you'll notice that there isn't much time left at all before this special ends. So you're gonna notice things end up wrapping up really quickly. And so Sonic begins to do all these nonsensical crazy challenges, like riding a bike across ice glaciers, climbing up Ice Pick Peak, snowboarding down Calamity Cliff, all to unlock the power of ultimate speed. Also, Scratch and Grounder do end up showing up to make an attempt to try and stop Sonic and catch him for Dr. Robotnik, but both of these dopes don't even get close to catching the blue speed demon. Now, this segment is pretty fun, though a tad janky. Sonic does all these seemingly random stunts, but we don't ever see anything on screen that shows the ring's power actually being unlocked. Also, there's a glider and a bike just chilling out in the middle of a snowy region with no explanation, and it's pretty goofy, but it's not all that bad. Overall, the action and the animation is really solid, with Sonic skating all over the place, dropping snowboards on top of Scratch and Grounder. It's all just a whole lot of fun. But after our blue boy completes all these amazing feats, Sonic has finally unlocked the power of ultimate velocity. And with only a few minutes to spare before Christmas Day, Sonic rushes off to take back everything that Robotnik stole. And as Sonic rushes towards Robotnik's fortress, we're treated with one final scene with the big bad doctor, as he's singing to himself with glee at his supposed victory.
Merry Christmas to me! Merry Christmas to me! Happiness is always so much more enjoyable when it's based on the misery of millions.
But before he even gets a chance to open any of his presents, Sonic uses his newfound super speed to reclaim all of the lost gifts, and he even swipes Robotnik's clothes for good measure.
He captured every present you stole.
I hate that hedgehog! I hate him! That vile little creature! That prickly vermin! That...
And then our blue boy runs all over the world in a matter of minutes, and returns the gifts all across Mobius, returning the holiday the way it should be. And so, with all the gifts returned all over the world, Sonic rushes back to Santa's workshop. But before he finally gets to Santa, he makes one more stop as he zooms back to where Sally is. who seems to have been waiting for our hero for quite some time. And when he finally gets to her, he showers her with an absolute mountain of gifts before she can even say a word. And as soon as Sonic got there, Sonic zooms off again, not even giving her a chance to finally say anything. And so, with all this finally wrapped up, Sonic meets back up with Santa, where Mr. Jolly begins praising Sonic for all of his amazing work. And then he begins to think about his medal double towards the beginning of the special, and the announcement of his retirement. And he decides to make it official, with him deciding that the only right person for the job that could replace him is right there in front of him, Sonic the Hedgehog. And so, Santa passes the Christmas torch to Sonic, giving him the brand new title and the brand new job of Sonic Claus. And he gives Sonic the iconic Christmas hat to boot to complete the whole new look. And it actually makes a lot of sense, as AO Sonic was pretty mature for the show and actually quite intelligent, so him having Santa's job now just makes sense. Though it definitely feels a tad goofy for sure. And as this special finally comes to a close, we're treated to one more very heartfelt scene that actually made me choke up a bit.
And he wishes all of you a Merry Christmas.
The kid's right. An extremely Merry Christmas. Every year of your life.
And with that, this Christmas special finally wraps up. Sonic Christmas Blast is one weird special, with this show combining elements from SatAM and AO, creating an almost accidental crossover, to somewhat random plot devices and a rushed final portion, to the odd animation choices and reused sound effects, to other tacked on elements like the flicky. It just makes this special feel weird, and yet it's still pretty fun. For anyone that's a fan of AO or SatAM, you'll find something to love here and enjoy. The story is silly, the action, the overall animation is solid, the jokes are good and goofy, and as a finale for the AO series, I'm happy with this. It truly felt heartwarming to watch this special and relive my childhood, and as long as you don't think too hard on the flaws, you'll have a great time with this special. And you know, focusing on this whole weird crossover for a minute, it's really cool that this Christmas Blast special ended up utilizing elements from SatAM and AO Sonic. And I think that was the point. Though this isn't confirmed and I'm mainly just speculating here for a moment, I think the whole idea was to combine these elements to allow fans of both the SatAM series and AO series to have a singular Christmas special that they could both enjoy. And I mean, with so many elements reused from SatAM into this Christmas special, I really think that this special was made with both fans in mind. Heck, I mean, even Tails' voice actor is the same from SatAM, and it's really cool. And yeah, having these elements kind of combined, and with Sonic kind of talking with a similar tone to SatAM, it can make it feel a tad inconsistent, but overall I think it's just fine. And you know what's also really cool? The fact that this Christmas Blast special ended up bringing back a lot of the original voice actors back for one final go. For example, Dr. Ivo Robotnik was voiced by John Baldry, and this would be his last time voicing the character, and I'm glad that it ended up happening. And that again goes for Scratch and Grounder as well. I guess the only downside about all of this is that we'll never get to see what the original intention was for the Sonic Christmas special, back when it was going to be an extremely Sonic Christmas. But if I had to speculate, I'd probably guess that this Sonic Extreme Christmas special was probably going to be in the same style of AO Sonic and SatAM, combining those elements together, and probably throwing in a few elements from Sonic Extreme, just like what they did with Sonic Christmas Blast. I honestly can't imagine it being all too different from what we already got, but it still would be nice to see what the original story was. Regardless though, focusing on the Christmas special that we actually ended up getting, despite its janky storytelling and its odd twists, Sonic Christmas Blast turns out to be a joyous watch. While it might not match the same quality of Sonic's other shows like Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog or SatAM, it offers a quirky and entertaining experience. And with a runtime of only 22 minutes, it serves as a nice final hurrah for the classic Sonic era. Now, if this special was upwards to an hour or more, then I'd say that the issues were a little more apparent and more troublesome. But with only 22 minutes, it won't take up that much of your time, and if you don't think too hard about it and just shut your brain off and have some dumb fun, you are going to have a blast with Sonic Christmas Blast. So, the big question. Should Sonic Christmas Blast be a part of your holiday traditions? Should this be one of the movies, one of the specials that you watch every year when the holiday season rolls around? Well, if you're into AO Sonic, the style and the structure of the episodes, the humor and the animation, then absolutely. It's inoffensive at worst, and it's just joyous at best. And it just lets you relive that old school childhood nostalgia from years ago. And for me personally, I'm definitely going to have this be a part of my holiday traditions, and I'll probably rewatch it at least once during the holiday season. It really is that fun to watch, and it just brings back so many good memories. And I'm surprised that we don't get more Christmas specials like this in the modern day. With how popular Sonic's becoming over the years, you would think that at one time or another we would get another holiday special. Think of something in the style of Sonic Prime or in the style of Sonic X. Maybe even the style of T-Lopes with the Sonic Mania animations. It's just nuts to think about that we haven't gotten a Christmas special since 1996. But regardless, even if we don't get another Christmas special ever again, or at least in my lifetime, I'm happy that we at least got this AO Sonic finale / Christmas special. Cause it sure as heck is weird, but it is a total Christmas blast. And with all that said, Just signing out. Happy holidays.